I would like to ask you the following, and yourself. When you think about reasons for disputes, I have 2 or 3 reasons to propose. And I would like you to reflect and tell me your answers. First, I wanted to tell you, or in reaction to what you said, you should always try to avoid lawyers or medical doctors. Try to avoid them, because they just make problems. When you meet a lawyer, he will say it's a whole huge problem and we have to solve it, you need a legal opinion, blah, blah, blah. And if you go to medical doctors, he will tell you that you are sick. So don't avoid them as long as you can. Second, because the world is perfect before meeting these kind of people. Second, when I look into what I have faced, where do disputes come from? I have found some interesting results. And it's about big companies. And it's about culture of mistake. Do you allow mistakes within your company, or do you don't you allow? We as lawyers, we are faced in a situation, say, I lead a legal opinion which shows that we are right. And the project manager comes to the chairman, and the chairman says, did we make a mistake? Yes or no? And if you don't have a culture of mistake, then you will say, no, we are right, and we will fight until the end. And after 4 years, the arbitral tribunal says, you have done completely wrong in the project. So this is a matter of culture of, do you allow mistakes? Do you learn from mistakes or not in your company? It's a question to you all. The second, it's hard to say, yes, we made a mistake and that costs the company 30 million euro. It is a very hard time. But do you allow mistakes or not? And in my experience, this is one of the criteria where the dispute comes from. Because it's no open discussion about who has done something. Second proposal to you. Changing responsibilities. In big companies, who cares? The project manager, 10 years after, he's not in the same position. He's in Bogota. He is in Brazil. There's no one who has to take responsibility, personal responsibility. People are changing. Sometimes when we start with arbitration, the first question is, who is still in the company from these 10 people? 5 have left, 2 are in China, 1 is in Brazil. Who is responsible? The person who is just going for the arbitration, responsible for the arbitration, is not the person who has dealt with the agreement. The knowledge is gone, and responsibility is gone. Third proposal, no de-escalation. If you think that people, the project managers responsible for the project, are able to find a solution, you are wrong. It's like, you know, maybe 2 elephants standing vis-a-vis each to each other and say, okay, I'm wrong, I'm right. The other saying, no, I'm right. It's like in military. You have 2 soldiers, you know, shooting each other, and then you say, try to resolve it. It's impossible. De-escalation. Find a mechanism that other people become responsible, that other people have a look at it, an objective look at it, until maybe escalate until the board level. But don't think that they can solve it at the end of the day. So, some proposals open for discussion.
Okay, just wanted to mention something to involvement of doctors and lawyers. Yes, I do think myself that it can be very, very harmful if you use the wrong doctor and if you use the wrong lawyer. And it's always a question of historic facts, and that what people remember used to be the case. Especially with regards to lawyers, it's the traditional picture, as you say, where there's 2 elephants standing face to face, and they're just trying to be right. I think that it's as we've discussed today at lunchtime. It's a more modern lawyer would be a lot more commercially minded, and he would understand what is actually the need of the company, and he would also be able to communicate in a very friendly and a more amicable manner with the other side as well. And if that works, if that culture works, then that can be very beneficial to involve the lawyer earlier on, but not use him as a weapon, but just as a tool and as a beneficial tool. And the same thing with the doctor. And I think it's also about admitting that even as a lawyer, it's very often the case that you do not know the answer, and you don't need to pretend you do know the answer and immediately say, oh, that's impossible or whatever. It's very often in discussions and negotiations that one lawyer says, that's completely impossible, we won't do it, and then you can't step down anymore because you've already made a comment which was completely wrong. And so I think it's more, it's also about educating people how to act a bit more on a soft skill level, and then maybe the involvement of anybody who could contribute could happen a lot sooner than is usually the case.
Yes, just three things. First, I agree with what you said. I mean, I believe that one of the issues that lawyers are involved too late. And obviously, if you have a good contract management, then probably you can also delay the involvement, but it must be really a waterproof contract management where people don't know what they are doing. Because most of the cases, and this goes to the second point, people do not read the contract, as you say. They just manage it thinking that they know what is written in the agreement. And so when there is a dispute, it's too late to document it or to even think how to solve it. So it's better to involve the lawyer at that point in time, because at least you structure the approach in a legal way. And the third thing, I agree with you, probably one of the issues of big companies is that people change position, change role. And it's an issue not because of the responsibilities, but mainly because you lose track of the history. So nobody knows what happened, especially in long agreements. You have a person negotiating it, closing the deal, and then they simply change position, and then when you go to execution, nobody remembers what was the intention of the parties. So that's, I think, it's one of the biggest issue we face when we need to document the relationship. There is no documents, there is no history. So that's, I think, is a big issue. And I don't even know how a big company today can handle that. You know, especially when you have tons of people around the world and they change job in 1, 2 years or 3 years time.
Thank you. Well, two aspects. I basically agree with what you said, and I think the matter is more broad, because it's not only the change of people within the company or within the group, or people have left the company. It's a matter of evidence in general. Where's the documentation? Where's the correspondence to a project, and so on? Who is responsible for the conservation of the evidence? Because often you face the situation that a dispute occurs 5 years after the contract was signed. So who can provide for the documents you need as an evidence? So that's an important thing. And the second thing is de-escalation. I think it's right. It can be helpful to have an early de-escalation, but I, as a lawyer, think the lawyers can be a means of de-escalation if they are placed in the right position, because lawyers are instruments. They do what they are paid for. If they should be angry towards the other party, they will be angry towards the other party. If they should provide for a critical internal opinion, they will do this. So, and if you have at an early stage a critical internal opinion showing the strength and the weaknesses, you probably have a more objective view on the issue, and it might help to de-escalate the situation.
Yeah, I have a point on the changing responsibilities. True, people will change, and the companies know that the people will change. At least what I have been doing, or what I have been seeing in my previous organizations, is that we try to make it more process-driven than man-driven. When I talk about process-driven means, as you rightly said, that we have to have the evidences. So we have to have a process in place that allows us to see that who has signed the document. If somebody has signed the document, it doesn't matter. He's just a company. But a company should have all the evidences in place, the process in place, so that at any point in time, whenever there is a probe into it, it can be answered by a team of people. That's why any signature that happens on a contract, it may be one person, but behind that, there is an approval process, and there are about 10 people who have signed the approval documents. So they are all evidence to it. That's exactly what I'm saying. So the process, when we have a proper process in place, I'm sure the big companies will be having it. I have not worked in an EPC company anyway, but in manufacturing companies, wherever I have worked so far, we have a clear documentation process where the document will lie, and we can retrieve it at any point in time.
With the email, today with the emails and so on, who keeps track? So basically, you can even retrieve them, but try to retrieve all the correspondence if you don't store it properly in a single place after 10 years when the guy has left. Or maybe there are people who crash their PC, and then you have everything in there, and that is gone. So you can even try to find it. I mean, obviously we have big processes. I mean, I think GE is one of those companies where there is Six Sigma, every possible processes, every possible audits. But we are talking about 300,000 people. And it's the same for every other community according to what they do. It's very difficult to handle. So, and probably what we should do, and I believe that's a good thing for external lawyers to provide some, especially for litigators, some good trainings. That's one of the topic, document retention, but not just for the purposes of keeping them for tax purposes or audit purposes, but it could be a good idea to explain to the people how to document a project management, and also for the people who have his experience. They should train the others on how to keep the document in place and where and how to, really. I don't think we do it enough. I mean, and probably we just focus on the closing of the deal because it's more important for the business. But at the end of the day, also the second part is crucial for keeping the margin safe, especially.
Any other comments?
Thank you. First, for the culture of mistakes or how to treat mistakes. I think this is the crucial point, the most crucial point between big companies, because then, I mean, you said it, and I was trying to remind myself of all the cases where we had, I mean, something like claims, and usually we resolved it, but the biggest problem is the attitude of the people in-house. I mean, on our side, on the supplier side, they don't want to admit it, and then they force you into some kind of a claim. So if you do find somewhere in the organization somebody was ready to say, look, you know, I've looked, I understand that we made a mistake, but okay, I'll take for some responsibility, I'll cover up for this one, and we will go ahead. I mean, on one side, on the other side, reasonably, that's usually this is the solution. Change of responsibility sometimes is not a disadvantage, but is an advantage, because somebody has left the organization, so it's easier to say, okay, he's not here, no that, we don't know, so we can give up, we are fully authorized to give up, and I mean, support the claim one way or the other. So sometimes it's an advantage. Concerning the documentation, I don't agree with it totally. I disagree with it totally. I mean, nowadays, I mean, you have computers, you can store as much as you want to, every email, every notice, everything, and you can always have a specific file for it, and you have always the backup of the company and whatever. So, I mean, doing logging every day and so on. So it's you can keep track, and you can, even if you don't really put it in a specific order, but simply have it there, you can do it, and we are doing it. I mean, I can fetch things, I mean, quite a few years ago, no problem. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Any other remarks?
Just comment to the speaker. You mentioned in back in 2002 how to set up this content management scheme. I'm just eager to hear on what parameters did you make the organizational setup. It was part of the legal department. Because of course there can be pros and cons, whether it's part of the legal or whether it sits elsewhere in the organization.
Yeah,
it could be interesting to hear what sort of...
Yes, yeah, it's a good question. See, the thing is, as I said, the contract management as a concept was not popular at that time. Not in Alstom, maybe in some other companies they were doing it, but really there was an external driver. Alstom was in a situation where we had burnt our fingers in big projects in America, and there were huge claims from everyone, from our clients, from our contractors, from the insurance, from everybody, whomever you can think of. And we were going more or less bankrupt. I think many of you know this. In 2003, the French government rescued our company. So this was the grave situation in 2002. And they said one of the fundamental reasons for this mishap is not dealing with the contract properly. Things like what I mentioned about this 2,000 requests. I mean, we had a $70 million contract and the subcontractor made a claim on us for $70 million. He said, for what? He said, yes, you have issued me 2,000 instructions during 1 year or 2 years of execution, which means 2,000 times you have changed my scope. And this is what you have to pay. So this is what drove us to make this contract management as a concept. And one quick remark also to, it's not about contract managers or lawyers. It is about contract managers and lawyers. What we have, what I said earlier also is that many lawyers are contract managers in our group. And we, non-lawyers, try to become lawyers, and they, lawyers, try to become engineers or more commercial oriented. And if you have noticed one sentence in the cover slide of James, who presented us in the last session in the pre-lunch, it says, a good commercial lawyer sees beyond the law. It was written in small letters, but I was very impressed. And that's exactly what it is. And that type of commercial lawyers, we have them as contract managers. They learn from us, we learn from them. We have regular interactions. So we try to mix. And of course, we have a legal dispute resolution or arbitration counsel, in-house counsel. And he's also a commercial guy, commercial lawyer. In the sense, if you go to him with a dispute and he's not the one to say, you have a 100% chance to succeed, go for it. He will always tell us, if you have a chance to settle, settle.
Just a quick follow-up question. I have the mic anyhow. So the day-to-day contract administration, is that done by your contract managers or is that done by the project organization?
Contract managers are incidentally part of the project organization in our setup.
Okay.
For example, in my group, I deal with about 15 or 20 projects at a time. And there are 15 or 20 project managers and they come to me every day.
So the claim management is just part of it?
Claim management is only part of it, yes, right. Absolutely, yeah. And they come to me for even letters, even some letters they will show me. Is it okay if I write it? 2 days ago I had a very interesting conversation with one of the project managers. He told me the client has delayed the gas. So it's clear he has to give it by this date, he has delayed the gas. So I'm happy I will get time extension. I said, wait, let's see the contract. And we saw the contract and it says condition precedent. I have to notify within 1 week of knowing an event that there will be a delay. So I told him, look, we have this 1 week limitation. You know it now, send him a short letter saying you are going to be delayed, we reserve the rights.
Any other comments?
Yeah, some comments and some thoughts. I fully agree with a lot of things that have been said, especially the question of the intrication between contract lawyers and contract manager. More or less, you know, the two sides of the same job. That mean on the right time. That mean sufficiently in advance. You can drive a project. Okay, sometimes when it's too late, it's too late. In fact, it's very important. It's in that way. To have in-house lawyers as a way to make risk management, I mean to prevent a catastrophe of what could be a dispute. And more in the big group is like that. What I want to also to say is the role of a lawyer. You say the culture of a mistake. Of course, everybody will tell you that normally, if you are responsible, you could have a culture of a mistake for a lot of reasons. The question is, how are you organized to avoid mistake or to discover mistake when it's too late? Then there is two points. First, because now when you are in a big group, you know, on a globalization scale, you have matrix organization. Matrix organization means you have business boss, you know, through the countries and so on. The problem is the role of the lawyers, and usually as lawyer could be financial people, is to make a role of check and balances. Because when I am the boss of one business line, of General Electric, of Siemens, of Alstom, or everything you want, I am, my first feeling is to take care to my bonus and my objective. First, okay, and not necessarily what is transversal, which could be the interest of a company by itself. Then, normally the interest of a company could interest the chairman, okay, and not only the individual bonus. And in the big group, we saw that every day you could have competition between two divisions to the same customer. We have the same price and so on. You know, this is not good. Then, two things in that case. First, the chairman has to give the rule of the game to his managers. First point, if you are not fiduciary duty, if you are not reporting, you know, in due time, not putting the problem under the carpet and things like that. Okay, if you do that, first point is yellow card, as we say in football. Second one is red card. Sometimes it could be a red card. The rule of the game has to be very precise to everybody. And then the role of the lawyers as check and balances is to say, for instance, each semester you have a budget review, a project review, a contract review. Then the thing is to say what happened at the level of a contract. When I say at the level of a contract, if nothing happened, we say no change, no force majeure, no suspension, nothing. Okay, it's nothing. But just ask the question every 6 months on long project. This is very important to know on that point. And when I discussed, as I told you, as I enter in Veolia at the beginning of the year, it's very well organized at the level of a big committee. What means to decide to take a big project of X million, you have to go to a committee, there is a go, no-go to prepare the bid. And I ask a question to the contract manager, to project manager, what happens, what role of the lawyer for follow-up up to the end of the implementation? It's much less organized. And we want to organize, as you say, for Alstom the same. That means the business lawyer, the contract lawyer, they can review every letter which could have a contractual impact. This is a decision of a contract manager. We're speaking here, you know, always the disputes are in a gray zone. They are of technical nature and in gray zone. It's never the case when you are right 100% and they are wrong 100%. Okay, forget about that. And it's technical and it's gray. Then the problem is to open the dialogue on a permanent basis and to be sure that what you shall write will not deserve you at the time of claim. For instance, if you recognize your liability in the letter, you are killed, okay? Then the way it is written, it could be live, in real time, things to be discussed with a lawyer.
Thank you. Any other? Yes.
Okay, short remark. I have a slightly different point of view. We are talking almost about the perfect world where sometimes somebody acts imperfectly, but that's not true. We want to have perfect things in non-perfect world. There is always a pressure because of money, because of time. Pressure creates mistakes. I don't believe that all managers are stupid and technicians too, and I don't know, banks are greedy, and you know. But there is a pressure because of the world, and as a result of that, we have wrong contracts. Why? Because a manager tells you, okay, I need it tomorrow. At the end of the day, you know, it's almost impossible to do it correctly, to do it perfectly. But it has to be done with mistakes. Yeah, so somebody accepts the risk, and this is the reason. this is the reason, and we are living in a world where very challenging. A lot of changes. Everything is changing. Legislation is changing. I don't know. All conditions are difficult to predict, and everybody wants to make a profit at the end of the day. But in such environment, it is almost impossible. So everybody wants to have a project win-win. Employer wins, suppliers wins. That's not true. And in practice, maybe the business result is somebody wins, and the rest they are not losing maybe so much, or maybe they're at the zero, and this is the standard. Why this is happening? Because of the time. And maybe this is the answer, because if I accept what you are saying, I would accept that people are stupid, are hiring stupid people, having stupid systems. Okay, go for bankruptcy. Don't make business, because it's impossible to have a business if you have stupid people. This is it.
Any other comments?
I want to tell something. I mean, you're talking about the win-win situation. It's not nice to have. It's a must. I mean, if a project runs into a problem, neither party can make. I mean, can meet any of its goals. Once you have a contract, it's like, from my point of view, it's like a Catholic marriage, until the project is over. So if you don't understand that, and you don't find a way to walk through until the end, until you reach the goals, you've lost. And it doesn't matter if you have a very nice claim and so on. Especially, and we are talking about utilities. We are talking about you have to erect a power station. You have to put it in time. You must support the grid, and so on. So, as you said, we are short of time, short of people, short of everything. So the management must acknowledge that under these circumstances, they should not expect from the employees perfect performance. And once that's understood, you can walk around. I mean, you can push yourself through the project. If that is not understood, that there is a problem between the employees and the management, the employee would like to say, I'm perfectly okay. The management would like to say, to dig down to find somebody, or let's fight the other party. Once you start fighting with the other party, you've lost. That's it.
Thank you. I think it's a little bit a compromise. Once my wife told me, and I think it's true for every day, when we start in the morning to wake up, it's a fight against chaos. When you go to bed, chaos begins. When you wake up, then you have to fight against chaos around you, and you have to bring structures in the life and in contracts and in the organization. It's just a fight of every day, because chaos is around. And I think what lawyers or good managers can do is just to reduce the amount of chaos and to give structures. And it's, I would say, the best effort, as you said, best effort. I mean, there's no perfect word, I agree, but to do your best to minimize risks, to do your best to be present and to invest time, sufficient time, adequate time in a project, of course. So I agree. I think it is not a, let's say, black and white. It's something in between.
And sometimes it's also about being brave enough to say, look, Mr. Management, I know that you tell me to have this finished by tomorrow, but this matter here is so important to, I really need more time. I need 2 days instead of 1 day. Sometimes it's possible. I know it's sometimes management is so strong and they say it has to be done for specific reasons. But I realized quite often that they just give you a date because they think that would be nice, and in reality that they look at it 3 days later. That happens as well. So sometimes it's good to stand up and ask them and tell or talk to them and say, look, I need 1 day more. I know it's not a perfect world, and I know sometimes it's not possible.
Oh, sorry.
So many times reality is quite different from what we want and what we plan, what we put into the contract. I give you an example. There is ongoing civil works on a site, and somebody comes, okay, look, we need this. It's not in the contract, but we now realize we need that. Fine, okay, let's sign amendment, change its scope. How long it takes? 5-6 months. Are you crazy? We need tomorrow. Okay, go there and talk with the guys. Maybe they will do that. They will do that. But this is the reason for claims, because there's nothing written. It's just, okay, buddy, are you going to do that? Yeah, sure. This. Oh yeah, fine. But this is what's going on site every day. Maybe there are perfect suppliers able to do things really fast, but all these gigantic companies, these tycoons, are like dinosaurs. They are not flexible. Everything takes too long. Too many people involved. But this is reality, and also this creates a lot of claims, lot of problems. This is it.
Ago. That's why I believe it's important to be self-critic. I realize that. I think. I've not heard really here a lot of self-criticism. I haven't heard a lot of how we can change things. And even if we need to cope with the world, I agree with you, and we do it all every day, right? So we know that we are not perfect, but our final goal is to think, maybe I'm doing something wrong. And this applies to each of us in each of the different functions. Because if everybody thinks that it's the fault of the other, whoever, the fault of the time, the fault of the management, it's the fault of the engineers, it's the fault of the contract management, it's the fault of the other guys, I don't have the time, then we don't move a step. So, I believe that it's really our common goal to change, at the end of the day, things. So change our approach. And the only thing you can do it is only changing yourself. So at least thinking every single day, can I do something differently? At the end of the day, that's the only. Otherwise, really, we go around. It's like when we say that the politician is the fault of the politicians. At the end of the day, we vote. So at the end of the day, it's our fault.
Let me ask another question, which is mentioned somewhere in the program. Do we need to go for a global standardization of agreements? Is it a need? We have this FIDIC contract, we have some standards, we have this kind of, is this the solution to say, okay, just use one form for one kind of purpose of transaction, we need one global form agreed by everyone and then just go from there? We save time and money, don't go with your agreement, just take that, this is a global standard. Is this a solution which makes life easier, or, I hate FIDIC contracts, but this is a personal opinion. Would that be a solution, from a strategy to say make life simpler and just go from, let's say, 2 or 3 standards?
When somebody asks me for a template or a standard contract, I tell him, do you want to buy a car? Why? Because if you want to buy a car, I have a good template. You can use it. Perfect. But if you want to build a power plant, I'm afraid that there is nothing like a template for building a power plant. 2 different conditions, 2 challenging. Everything is specific all the time. It's nice to have standard provisions like this mediation, adjudication, arbitration clauses. Perfect, yeah, proved. But not the entire contract. This is my answer.
Any other opinions for against or for standard agreements?
I do think that there is a possibility to come up with some standard. I don't like the FIDIC as well, but I think the fact that the FIDIC is not good enough doesn't mean that a standard is not something that we have to look for. I do think that in most cases we are doing very similar, we are treating very similar incidents. We would like to buy something to be provided a certain date that does a certain thing. I'm not talking about the major EPC contracts and something like that, but we would like to buy a pump, a compressor, a generator, whatever. So once you are, I mean, there could be something also for the EPC projects if you want to have something like that. But the idea that we are each and every time trying to invent the wheel is not, I can't accept it. And within our organization, it's one of the things that I'm trying to do all the time is to show that we are able to have standards, and then whenever you want to buy something, you can put